Maybe you're starting to explore a career as an appraiser and want to know if now is the right time to get started. Or you're measuring your career span in decades and want to find out more about the latest apps, technology, and resources that can make your life and work a bit easier. Get the answers and insight you need with Beyond the Numbers, a podcast from McKissock Learning. I'm Julie Mollendorp Floyd, course and curriculum developer and instructor here at McKissock. Join me and an expert guest each week as we dive into the topics that matter most to appraisers, from industry and education news to marketing and other insights to help you run your business more effectively. If you'd like to stay at the forefront of appraisal news, boost your career, or just learn more about the profession, subscribe to Beyond the Numbers with McKissock Appraisal at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Hope to see you there soon. Welcome to Beyond the Numbers with McKissock Appraisal. I'm your host, Julie Mollendorp Floyd, a certified general appraiser in Missouri and Kansas, and a course and curriculum developer for McKissock. Today, we are talking about appraisal management companies, what they are, and whether they're the right choice for you in your appraisal practice. Joining us to talk about this issue is John Dingeman, Chief Appraiser at Class Valuation, one of the giants in the AMC industry. Hi, John. Thanks for being here today for this dive into AMCs.
Hi, Julie. It's a tough topic. Thank you for having me, and it's good to see you.
Great. Thanks for being here again. So what exactly is an AMC? What do they do?
Well, an appraisal management company, really at the end of the day, is there to serve in two capacities. One is to manage the appraisal process for a lender who is seeking that solution rather than operating their own appraisal desk. And the other is to serve as a partner to the appraisers, procuring assignments for them, assisting in the QC process, guarding against appraiser independence, violations, etc.
Mm-hmm. So how does an appraiser decide if an AMC is the right path for them to take in their career?
That's a great question, Julie, because I think we hear more on social media or read more on social media of opportunities outside of the appraisal management space, right?
Right.
And that's fair, and that's a business model for some appraisers. I've met plenty of appraisers who their entire business model is built off of working with appraisal management companies, and then, of course, a hybrid of both. That aside, there are going to be some appraisers that just don't work in the mortgage financial transaction space at all. So that's a decision you have to make. I'm troubled sometimes when I hear appraisers who do work for appraisal management companies, including us, who either are ashamed, they do not want to disclose that they work for AMCs. In fact, I've stared at people in the eye who say they refuse to work for AMCs and you'll never work for an AMC. And I'm thinking, I just saw one of your appraisals. So,
yeah.
But I do understand that. Look, we're both educators too, Julie. And I've taught classes before where people have come up to me at the very end and they are looking around like, is somebody else in the room? And all they wanted to do was talk about working with class or working with me.
Sure.
And they didn't want others to know that they do.
Right. Secrets. Gotta love it.
But it's a business decision you have to make, right? And if it makes sense for you, which it does for many, then awesome. And if it doesn't work for you, that's okay too. I'm not sure we should be judging others on their business decisions, but but nonetheless, I know that happens.
Right. So if you are doing residential work and you're working in lending type appraisal work, majority of the time you're going to work with AMCs, correct?
Yeah, I mean, there are lenders that have flipped back and forth, some that have an appraisal desk model. I think when times are tough, I think you see more lenders that will gravitate back towards appraisal management for a couple of reasons. They're sales organizations. We have to remember that first. They cannot recoup the cost of the appraisal desk. And so if time is tight, what are they going to look to do? They're not going to eliminate sales folks who are generating revenue. They're going to look at eliminating those cost centers that do not generate revenue.
I get it. I get it. So are AMCs regulated? Are they governed in any way?
They're regulated by every state in the country, so
Okay.
that first and foremost. And then there is a national ASC registry fee. So the appraisal subcommittee has some governance over it. I think the CFPB has some things to say about appraisal management companies
True.
as well, but highly regulated. And then not only from the regulatory bodies themselves, but audited by their clients, which
Mm,
can be quite extensive and frequent. In addition to that, outside of those audits, you still have monthly scorecard calls, generally speaking, with your
okay.
lenders who are really at the end of the day just trying to make sure there's alignment
Hmm.
and that we're not creating any pain points for the lender and or the appraiser partners.
So AMCs, you're saying AMCs are regulated by the states, kind of in a similar fashion to appraisers?
Yes, and in fact, it's the same regulatory body that issues our appraiser credentials that
Okay.
offers or issues the appraisal management company licenses, and that is per state. Now, Hawaii is in a point of influx right now.
Hmm.
They allowed their AMC law to lapse.
Oh no.
Um, there was some confusion. I think some people got super excited. Hawaii doesn't like AMCs. See, they don't work. No, that wasn't the case. The department regulates individuals. And so when
Okay.
that law was set for renewal or ready to sunset, the department said, oh, well, this is weird. Why are we even licensing a company? We don't
Mm.
do that. And so they thought, oh, we'll just let it go without consultation with the appraisal subcommittee or
Right.
anybody else. They are in the process of reenacting that law. And so we'll see that. But all 50 states
Okay.
have some sort of AMC licensing and laws that govern them.
So how does an appraiser make sure that an AMC is registered in their state?
Well, I would say one easy place to go is the appraisal subcommittee's AMC registry, but that would not be true.
Okay.
Those are going to be AMCs that are that have exceeded the threshold and
Oh,
have to register for the ASC registry. What I would do,
threshold. What do you mean by
um,
threshold?
number of appraisals for federally related transactions in that given
Okay.
state under a calendar year. So you could conceivably have an AMC who's on the AMC registry one year and then not the next, and maybe the following they'll be back on.
Okay.
Um,
Interesting.
where I would go is your state regulator licensing page, just
Okay.
like a search for an appraiser. So we
Hmm.
can validate whether or not an appraiser is licensed within that state. You can do the same with the appraisal management companies.
So what happens if an appraiser does an appraisal for an AMC that's not registered in their state? Whose responsibility is that?
Ooh, well, it sounds like it's the appraiser's responsibility to say, "Hey, I'm you sent me an assignment, and you're not
Right?
registered to work in this state. Do whatever you can and decline the assignment." Is ideally
Sure.
what you should be doing.
Sure. So if you're an appraiser who's interested, maybe you're new to the profession and you want to do work for AMCs in general, how would you go about uh, getting assignments? How would you hook up with an AMC?
Whew. I think there's some publications that actually think of it as like a Rolodex of AMCs. I think there are some publications that also issue that for lenders that work direct with appraisers.
Okay.
So search for those. Really, I think one of your best sources is go back to your licensing page for your state
Okay.
and look through the list of AMCs and start reaching out. Um, you're, I think you could ask your peers for some feedback. We see that online all the time.
Yes, we do.
My cautionary tale there is, and I think this goes with any institution, any business that we work with, et cetera. I mean, you think of restaurants. You and I could go to the same restaurant. I love it. It's the best service. It's the best food.
Right.
and your experience is very different. And I've had the same. There are AMCs that I loved to work with when I was in the field,
Mm-hmm.
and those that I wouldn't dare accept an order from. And I'd have a conversation with one of my peers, a friend, for example, like you, and you might share the exact opposite. And your
Right.
experience is very different. You might say, wow, that is so weird. I love working with that one,
Right.
right? And I don't know how you work with the other one because I can't stand them. Again, experiences are different for every individual.
Sure.
Find the ones that work with you, give it a shot, read through their service level agreement, their engagement letters, understand what they're asking for. And there are some times that you can um, learn how to navigate the assignments with them. I
Okay.
remember we worked with my wife and I owned a firm, Julie. We worked with a
Mm-hmm.
large appraisal management company, and I told her there's no way we're going to continue to work with these individuals. It's just hard to overcome their conditions and so on and so on. And she taught me a very valuable lesson at that time. She said, John, you should document what they're asking for, and at the end of the week, look through it and start making corrections in your report. Maybe it's your addendum, your templates, your quick responses, if you will, that need some massaging, and then come back to me. And I told her after 2 weeks, Julie, that I thought it was a worthwhile effort, but it's still too much. And she said, give it another couple of weeks. By the end of 45 days, I had it down. And
You
they
know,
ended up
we
being one of our very best customers and one of my favorite AMCs to work with.
that's a valuable lesson. Always listen to Blair. She is a brilliant woman. She is. She gave you some
That
good
she is.
guidance there. Good guidance. So, okay, let's get down to this issue. AMCs sometimes get some bad press. Go online, go to an appraiser forum. You're going to read all kinds of bad press sometimes. Um, what would you say is the best thing that AMCs do for appraisers? Why do we need AMCs?
If you had asked me in 2013, before I entered this space, what my impression would be, and I would tell you that we work a hybrid firm and we do leverage AMCs for a portion of our business, but I was uncertain of their contributions to my work,
Sure.
um, and that quickly changed. And when I talk to other appraisers that have gone from field work to AMC or lender work, they share some of the similar experiences, things that they thought didn't exist. Appraiser pressure,
Mm-hmm.
they see it, they guard against it, um, and so on. Managing the appraisal process is important for the lenders. They do not have the bandwidth to seek and find appraisers across the country.
Sure.
Maybe they do for onboarding, but then to manage that going forward for compliance purposes,
Mm-hmm.
tracking down an appraisal on the if chance that there's some delays associated with it.
Right.
And generally speaking, the first AMC I worked with, um, their underwriting department, said, look, they were very honest with me. This, our skill set is in underwriting loans and
Mm-hmm.
loan applications, eligibility of properties, but not the appraisal report itself. And
Right.
they found it invaluable that they transitioned to an AMC.
Okay. Okay. Um, as the chief appraiser of a big AMC, what advice would you give to appraisers? What's the issue that comes up most in appraisals that are submitted to your company?
Oh, God. I think for an appraiser who's working with any appraisal management company, even ours, right? Just understand you're a business partner. Treat it like a
Mm-hmm.
business. I guess, an appraiser yesterday told me he considers the AMC's his client, just as he would a lender is
Okay.
his client. So if you if you treat it that way and as a business, I think
Mm-hmm.
you'll be better off and succeed. And what I mean by that, Julie, is you're interacting with the team, right?
Mm-hmm.
In our business, I don't care. If you're working with an AMC, a lender, an attorney, a homeowner, a real estate agent, I don't think it really matters. I think you're gonna experience some frustration on
Sure.
just about any assignment, right?
Right.
Maybe it's you and you're just having a bad day. I don't know, but
We're
that's always
human. We're
possible,
human. Sure.
right? And so I actually, when I'm teaching, I always share this exercise. Now it's kind of, I transitioned. I used to email myself. So when I would get frustrated and mad at an AMC, a lender, or whoever,
Right.
and I've fired plenty of different clients, I used to write myself an email. I felt really good about it, and I'd hit send. Turns out John is a pretty popular name. And so a friend of mine who also was named John said, "What are you emailing me? And what is this rant about? Like, you're just
Oops.
mad." So now I use those sticky notes that are on my computer, and I write myself a sticky note. I put it away. I come back 30 minutes later and I address whatever the issue is. The
Okay.
people on the other end of the line, whether you're working with an AMC or not, those individuals are just trying to do their job too.
Sure.
And they're looking for the least amount of friction. And I don't mean by you capitulating, I just mean the least amount of friction. They don't want to be called names. They don't want to be
Right.
told that they don't know what they're doing, because they generally do a very
Mm-hmm.
good job. Maybe there's some learning opportunities, and I think that goes for both. I've had conversations with appraisers who didn't like conditions sent jump on the phone with me, and we
Right.
walk through it, and they're like, "Oh my God, nobody's ever explained it like that.
Right.
That
Now
makes
I
total
understand.
sense now,"
Sure.
right? So learn from your clients and make decisions about the ones you want to work with. And
Sure.
again, discover it on your own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I taught a class on responding to a reconsideration of value yesterday. And one of the big takeaways from class is stop, breathe. This is not a personal affront to your appraisal if you're asked for corrections, additional support, those kind of things. See it for what it is. And definitely before you send off that angsty email, take a breath, take a pause. Yeah, and maybe revisit that in 30 minutes and see if that's really the way you want to word things. It doesn't have to be an adversarial relationship.
No, and
Everybody has the same goal.
yeah, and I go through that same exercise when I speak with real estate agents, because I'm asked to do that.
Right?
Um, I do that when I speak to our lender partners, and when they
Hmm.
ask me to come and speak before their loan originators and processors. I go through that same exercise. At the end of the day, you're trying to close a loan if you're a loan
Right?
originator. You're trying to sell a house if you're an agent, or see
Hmm.
that your customer buys a house. Um, Nobody's really looking for a fight, right?
Right?
I think everybody knows Danny Wiley. He's one of my favorite persons on the
Hmm.
planet.
Love him.
And Danny once said at a conference, and it stuck with me throughout. And I thought, oh, that was a really cool comment. And now I hear it, and I hear it once a month. And that is, I get on a phone with an appraiser, as
Hmm.
Danny described. There's some questions about the appraisal report. Maybe the client asked, maybe the borrower asked, somebody
Hmm.
asked some questions. And I'm reaching out because I'm reading the report and I don't understand either. Um,
Hmm.
there's plenty of times I do, and I can point the client in the right direction, and the appraiser never knows or hears about it, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and so value of an AMC. In other instances, I can't, and so I reach out to the appraiser, and they start describing something,
Hmm.
and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Where is that in the report?
Right.
And they say, well, it isn't. I mean, you should know that if you know this market. I said, but
But I
the
don't.
underwriter doesn't know this market. Or
Right.
it would be very helpful if what you just said to me verbally, if that was in the report. And I find it doesn't
Absolutely.
have to be overly verbose, right?
No.
And I think what you said was adversarial. I often see what is antagonistic language in an ROV response. That that doesn't serve anybody well.
No.
So just to the point. I would also say do not dismiss the requests either. And I think you go through that probably in your class,
I
right? Like,
do. Don't ghost them. Don't
don't ghost
ghost.
them, and don't just say I used better comps, right?
Right.
they do want some reason and rationale. And remember, in some instances, they're not looking for necessarily an increase in value or a change in value. They are trying to understand how you came to your value conclusion, and that is understandable.
Right. And, appraisers have to be ready to explain and not necessarily defend their conclusions, but sometimes that additional support is needed. And as a
100%.
former regulator, I remember many times having a complaint on an appraisal. We're discussing it with the appraiser, and I'm asking them some questions. And like you said, they give me fantastic answers. They give me exactly what I needed to know. And I'll say, can you point me to where that's mentioned in your appraisal report? And like you said, it's not there. And I said, you wouldn't be in front of your state board had you put that analysis, that discussion in your appraisal report. So it's your job as the appraiser to help the reader understand the market, the subject, and how they relate to each other. And you can't assume that they know your market, that they know your area. Yeah.
Or know exactly what it is that you did and how you got there.
Right, right. All right, John, anything you'd like to leave us with before we leave our podcast today?
Look, I appreciate everything that you do, that McKissock does for the appraisal profession. I would encourage appraisers to get involved. First and foremost, we talked about state regulators. Many of the states have a state appraisal organization. They should join it, be involved, network with their peers. Again, take things with some caution when you're sharing some experiences.
Don't believe everything you read online.
Don't believe everything you read. Also consider joining a national organization like the National Association of Appraisers, the Appraisal Institute, the American Society of Appraisers. There's a bunch of groups out there. So I think you should do that. And then if you're on our panel, thank you so much. We value our appraiser partners very much. We appreciate everything that they do and contribute. And if you know me, I'm not saying people do, but if you do, I'm bullish on appraisers. My daughter is a trainee in Texas with her own supervisor, and I'm bullish on appraisals. I don't think we're going away. I do think for appraisers, we have to recognize what value we contribute, and that is our opinion of value. That's what our license and credential allows us to do. And in some states like Arizona, my initial license, that is a privilege afforded only to the credentialed appraiser. In other words, nobody else can give an opinion of value on real property in that state, right? And if you recognize that that's what we contribute, that's what we do for the users of our services, then I think we will prosper in the end. And just be receptive to change. It's tough, but
our process is changing, and that's okay. We've got to grow with it. I did want to reinforce what you said about joining professional organizations. You and I are both members of the National Association of Appraisers, and organizations like that give us power when we can band together. And ours is a solitary profession in a lot of situations, but we do have more power when we speak with one voice.
We sure do.
100%. Thanks for tuning in to this week's Beyond the Numbers. If you'd like to stay at the forefront of appraisal news, boost your career, or just learn more about the profession, be sure to subscribe to Beyond the Numbers with McKissock Appraisal at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for stopping by.